Mhm.
Good evening. I am Sam Excel, a member of the Enough Club and the student liaison to the Town of Newcastle Holocaust and Human Rights Committee. On behalf of our committee, the students of Enough, and the Town of Newcastle, I would like to welcome you this evening to Newcastle's commemoration of International Holocaust Remembrance Day. The UN General Assembly has designated the 27th day of January, the anniversary of the liberation of the Auschwitz-Birkenau concentration camp, as International Holocaust Remembrance Day. On this day, we honor the 6 million Jewish victims of the Holocaust, as well as the millions of other victims of the Nazi regime. As genocide and human rights violations continue to occur throughout the world, and as we are witnessing a global rise in anti-Semitism, it is particularly important that we gather as a community tonight and to do our part to remember together. Now I would like to introduce the advisor of Horus Greeley High School's Student Club, Enough, Mr. Kearns.
Hello, my name is Joe Kearns. I am a physical education teacher at Horus Greeley High School, and I also serve as the football coach at the high school. Recently, I became the proud advisor of the Enough Club. In meeting with the students, I can tell you that it is a really special group of kids that truly care about doing the right thing. This is not about putting something on their resume or trying to get into college because they were in the club enough. This is a group that sees an issue we've been dealing with for a long time, and wants to do something about it. It's inspiring, and it's a reminder that the future is in really good hands with these kids. One of the students in Enough that I had a chance to talk with today was Ben Goldenberg. What a really, really cool kid to talk to. A student athlete at Horus Greeley that I have the honor of introducing tonight. And before today, I didn't know as much about him as I should have. So we had a little Zoom. I wanted to introduce myself to the young man. And this is just a reminder of how many great kids we have at Horus Greeley and how many great kids we have in the Enough Club. So tonight, it is my honor to introduce to you Ben Goldenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Kearns. Hi, my name is Ben Goldenberg, and I'm a member of the club Enough at Horus Greeley High School. Enough stands for Educate Now on Understanding Genocide and Hate. The club's goal is to educate our generation about hate so that we recognize it, stand up to it, and prevent it. We believe that by creating awareness and tolerance, we can create a more loving tomorrow. We recognize that hate exists not only across this nation, but within our community. By facing this head on, bringing it to light, we hope to empower our peers and community to be more tolerant and stand up for what's right, for the rights of all people. Now I'd like to introduce Solveig McShay, a member of the Town of Newcastle Holocaust and Human Rights Committee.
Thanks, Ben. I have the pleasure this evening of introducing our very special guest speaker. Born in New Jersey in 1926, Alan Moskin was drafted into the Army at age 18 in September of 1944. He was a member of the 66th Infantry, 71st Division, and this was a part of General Patton's Third Army. He fought in combat through France, Germany, and Austria. And on May 4th in 1945, his company participated in the liberation of Gunskirchen, a concentration camp in Austria. He stayed in Europe as a member of the U.S. Army of Occupation until June of 1946. When he came back to the United States, he continued his education at Syracuse University and then went on to NYU and obtained his JD in 1951. He practiced law for 20 years as a civil trial attorney, spent some time in the business sector, and then retired. Today, he regularly speaks with students and community organizations about his experiences during the war. He also has contributed to educational exhibits and initiatives at organizations like the Shoah Foundation and the Museum of Jewish Heritage. But I think one of the things he's most passionate about is educating younger generations about the Holocaust and the pain and the suffering and the loss that derives from hate. So welcome, Mr. Moskin. We're so delighted to have you here, and we're looking forward to hearing your story tonight.
Thank you, Solveig. Before I start, just want you to know, I always wear this cap when I speak. my World War II cap. It makes me feel connected to a lot of my buddies who never made it back home. And I always feel their presence when I speak. If I put my head down, periodically I'm looking at notes because I don't want to leave out anything. Get comfortable because I'm not a 10-minute speaker and I got a lot of ground to cover. I can be graphic. I think everybody here can handle it. I hope so. I don't pull any punches, so you're going to hear the gospel when I say something. If I use any 4-letter words, I'm an old infantry grunt. You got to excuse me. I don't think I'll do that, but sometimes they pop out of my mouth. My talk is in 2 parts. First, about me, a boy, a student, like some of the kids I'm looking at here now, a soldier in basic training, a soldier in combat, etc. The second part, the main reason why I speak, is what happens when this young soldier became a concentration camp liberator. For over 50 years, after the end of World War II in Europe, I didn't speak at all about my experiences as a soldier and as a liberator. The reason was that I was very fearful of bringing back all those very frightening and disturbing memories that I had, nightmares that I had when the war ended. I remember the Army of Occupation when I was over there for about a year after the war ended. I couldn't sleep. Guys told me I was screaming out names of buddies probably. I remember crying. I remember sweating. I used to walk the streets and 3, 4, 5 in the morning. I was scared to try to sleep. I tell you, at times I thought I was going crazy. That's not easy to say, but I didn't know what was happening to me. In retrospect, but not at the time, I probably had what's now commonly known as PTSD, post-traumatic stress. But we didn't know about that in World War II. You never heard that term. They go like you're shell shocked or you're crazy and they didn't know how to treat it. You didn't want anybody to see you act like that because they send you to somewhere you didn't want to be sent to. And by the way, my General Patton, he didn't believe in any neurological. Anybody said they had a nightmare, he don't want to hear it. He thought you were a malingerer. You're trying to get out of combat. His favorite phrase was, suck it up. When your general says, suck it up, and you're 18, you suck it up. And that's what I did for 50 years. And I remember moving up to Rockland County, where I live now, from New Jersey. And in 1995, 50 years after the end of the war in Europe, the lady at the local Holocaust Museum heard what I just told you, called me on the telephone. Is that true, Mr. Moskin? You were a liberator? Blah, blah, blah. I said, yeah. Ah, boy, now I got somebody to speak to the kids at the schools. I said, I don't want to use the language I use, but I shouldn't. I was rude. I didn't mean to be. I hung up the phone after cursing her a little bit, but she kept calling me in a very aggressive way. But please, it's important. Try it once. If it's too much for you, I'll never ask you to speak again. So on October 10, 1995, 50 years after the end of the war in Europe, I spoke for the first time at the Nanuet Mall in Rockland County. And baby, I was dead wrong. It was like a catharsis. When I spoke, it came out of me. I must have spoke for an hour and a half, 2 hours. I was amazed at how all that poison that had been bottling up inside of me all that time. And I can tell you, whoever's watching, since that date, 25 years ago, I've been a busy boy. I mean, it's last count, 125,000 middle school, high school, college students, 12 different states. I went with Mrs. Moskin to Stockholm, Sweden. I've done a lot of television, GI Jews, the Shoah Foundation. Just pipe my name in whatever you do with the Google, and you go. I'm all over the damn internet. So that's enough about my background. Let me give you a brief personal background. I was born in Englewood, New Jersey. I'm a Jersey boy. 4th Ward in Englewood, New Jersey. I emphasize this because It was very diverse. I don't know how diverse this area is I'm speaking to, but where I lived in the Fourth Ward neighborhood, Jewish kids like myself, Catholics, Protestant. There was an Asian boy, a Mexican girl. There was even a Muslim boy, uh, colored, now called black. We played in the streets together. Every mother cooked dinner about those days, by the way. I'm not putting mothers down, but mothers didn't work outside the house those days. Dinner time, my father came home. My father was a pharmacist. Hours were rough, so I had to be home at 6:30 with my brother. The family sat down. The grandparents, all from the old country, used to. The family dinner time was like family time. We talked. I made fun of some of the kids. I said, they were talking with their mouth because I got that cell phone. They don't talk, they just look. But what I learned is what Maya Angelou is one of my favorite people, a great poet author, had a nice little sweet voice that I always remember. She passed away, unfortunately, a few years ago. But one of the things she said was, people are more alike than unlike. I like to say people are more alike than different. No matter what the color of your skin is or your religion. When you're a kid, who thinks about those things? I played ball with colored kids, Catholic kids, never even thought about color, their skin, or religion. And my father, I remember said, and I never forgot, we talk about this kind of stuff. I said, when you get a cut, I got a scar here. What's the color of the blood? Anybody, and they tell the kids, red, red, red. We're more alike than different. I want the kids to remember that. Went through the Englewood school system. 2 weeks after my 17th birthday, I started the Q's upstate Syracuse. I was very young. I never went to fourth grade. They skipped me from third to fifth. I don't know. I didn't like it. I was a good athlete. I don't like to be younger than the guys bigger than me. But they must have thought I had something upstairs. I don't know. So they skipped me. What could I do? At 17, 2 weeks later, I started Syracuse. 1 year later, got my draft notice. Every male, back those days, every male hit 18, got a notice from the government. Greetings. I don't know who picked that word out. Greetings, like you're going to a bar mitzvah or wedding. But that meant you reported for a physical exam. You passed the physical, you went to the Army, Navy, Flyboy, Coast Guard. I went into the United States Army. I went down to Camp Landing, northern part of Florida, for 3+ months of infantry basic training. Now, look, I was a good athlete, jock, you call it, track, football, but I never had a gun in my hand before, like most of the northern boys. And I'm contrasting that to the southern guys, because those kids, apparently when they were 3 years old, start shooting and fishing, so it was altogether different. Got on the range the first day with the M1. By the way, the M1 rifle was my baby. Never left my right hip in combat. I loved the M1. It was very accurate, but it had a kick like a mule, knocked me on my rear end. Everybody's laughing. But, it's like anything else. Remember you ride a two-wheel bicycle? First time you got on it? At least I thought. Then later it's a piece of cake. That's how my M1 was after a while. After 3+ months, listen, basic training, I'm not going to go into the details of. It's learning how to kill or be killed, how to survive in combat. That's quite a transition from being a student to learning how to kill or be killed, but that's what it's all about. And you had to pay attention, and I did, and I got through it. After 3 months of basic training, shipped overseas, Liberty Ship Convoy. Woohoo! Those Liberty ships were not meant to be on the Atlantic Ocean. Let me just put it this way. Everybody was going from both ends, okay? 13 days of hell. And land, I found out later, some of the guys went over on the Queen Elizabeth, Queen Mary. I said, oh, baby, I lost out on that one. Everybody was sick as, I don't want to think about it. I'm getting nauseous again. Landed in Liverpool, England. Went across the channel into France, into a replacement camp where they send you up to the front line, and got sent up to join the 66th Infantry Regiment, 71st Infantry Division, part of the famous Third Army, led by General George S. Patton. You'll have to have me come back another time because I could talk about General Patton. That's for another hour. Great general. We follow him anywhere. Militarily, tough as nails. Woo. But as a human being, I always think he's looking down. I got to be a little on the flaky side. I mean, he believed in reincarnation. Now, listen, when your general tells you you're looking at Napoleon all the time and you thought he was kidding, he wasn't kidding. He thought he came back as Napoleon, and he believed it. Then later was the Roman Empire general. We all started, we didn't smile in front of him because that would be bad news. But I don't know, that's enough about Patton because I can talk about him a lot. I fought in combat in the Rhineland campaign, Central European campaign, in places like Coburg, Beirut, Amberg, Regensburg, most of those German towns he did with Bergberg. And every one of those battles against the Krauts, that's what we call the Nazis, I lost a lot of my buddies, okay? A lot. Too damn many. And I was just one of the lucky ones because if I was 100 meters to the right, 100 meters to the left, you wouldn't see me sitting here, and I get a little jumpy even thinking about it. And I went through a lot of guilt. I can't get into that psycho stuff. Why I made it and some of my buddies didn't, and that's rough. I'm just going to talk as I talk to the kids. I want them to know a little bit about combat because these movies and television shows and all this stuff, they make it look like it's glamorous heroes and all. I never saw an atheist and I never saw a hero in a foxhole. I can tell you that right now. It's like being a Hellenbach when you're in combat. That's what it's like. Second day I was on the front line, something hits the top of my head. I reach up and I pull down. If you can see me like this, I pull down an arm, okay? An arm, blood soaked. And on the wrist is the tattoo of an eagle. And I start screaming, Wilsey, Wilsey. Wilsey had an eagle tattooed on his wrist. He was going to soar like an eagle after the war. I was just talking to him 10 minutes before. Now I'm holding his arm. You think that doesn't shake you up? A couple of weeks later, my best friend, TR, was from a little town outside Detroit. He was a big Detroit Tiger fan. Hank Greenberg was a Jewish first baseman. The Detroit Tigers, I don't know if you go back. When a Jewish kid made the major leagues, baby, and I was a good athlete. Oh, boy, we idolized that. When he told me he was a Detroit Tiger fan, that was it. And, we talked about family and girlfriends and religion. And in a couple of days, when you're with somebody 24 hours and seeing your buddies get blown away every other minute, it's a connection. You heard the Band of Brothers. Well, that's like, he's like your brother. And he was like my brother. And I forget what town again, all hell was coming in. And Sergeant Ali said, hit the hole. Krauts were throwing in heavy mortar, artillery. And I went down. And then when I let up a little, I looked up and TR was always about 100 meters to my right. And I couldn't see him right away. And I didn't like that. And I ran like hell as fast as I could to my right. And there's my best buddy sitting with his back against the crater. And man, I saw something I never wanted to see. His right leg was about 10 feet off his body and his insides were all over the damn place. But I ran up, put my helmet under his chin. I didn't want him to look down and see what I saw go into shock. Because when you're in combat, you get to know what shock. The eyes going and the body follows. And I kept screaming, medic, medic. And I knew nothing a medic could do, but you do things by instinct sometimes. And Sergeant Ali tapped me on the shoulder and said, college boy, get your rear end. Moving forward, you can't stay back with the wounded. Well, damn, I knew the orders, but I don't want to leave my best friend dying in the filthy hole in Germany. No how. But I had to follow orders, so I had to leave him. And you don't get over something like that, you understand? I tell this thing 100 times, still get all messed up when I think about him. And then the lieutenant asked, I wanted to write the letter to his mom. The officers usually did that. And I remember in a foxhole 4 or 5 nights with a flashlight, pencil, toilet paper, anything I could write pretty well. It was hard. I wrote to his mom, told her what a great son she had. I didn't feel no pain. I lied a little bit. And then I went out on the anniversary of his death for many years out to Michigan with his sisters and his mom. And well, they're all gone. She passed away a long time ago. But every time I think about it, when I talk about it, I don't want to get too broken up here. The last thing, I just want to say one other thing. I was a scout, and scouts go in ahead of the main outfits to make sure that you don't get ambushed by the Krauts. We came under fire. Santana was my buddy at this day, and we came under fire from the second floor ledge. I got behind a Panzer tank, a German tank. Santana was out in the open. The perpetrator was shooting at him. I got a couple of rounds off, made a hit. Down he fell. We ran up, and on the ground is this handsome, blonde, young, very young-looking dead soldier, no pulse. And Santana said, "To college boy, how can you be so young?" We didn't know it at the time, but later realized that this young, handsome, blonde teenager was a member of what was called the Hitler Jugend, or the Hitler Youth. I don't know if any of the students have studied that yet, but they were a fanatical, full of hate, young Nazis, all 14, 15, 16. And they killed a lot of my buddies. They were good, I'll give them that, but mean, full of hate. I'll get off this now. That's not why I'm here, really. I tell the young kids the most realistic picture of combat, they want to get an idea. And I think they show it now. About 20 years ago, when I saw that, I had to walk out. That movie was so realistic. The movie Saving Private Ryan, done by Spielberg with Tom Hanks and Matt Damon. Very good movie, but too damn realistic for me to see that, the body parts and everything. But you'll get an idea. Again, I'll repeat. It's like being a Hellenbach. And I'm just one of the lucky ones that I'm talking to you right here and now. Before I get to the second part, the main reason why I speak, I just want to talk a little bit about the Hitler Youth again. Because near the end of the war, the two elements of the Nazis that we had real problems was the Waffen-SS and the Hitler Youth. They were the real mean, hateful Nazi, not the German Wehrmacht. I mean, I was just a regular German soldier fighting like we were. But the Waffen-SS, those Nazi officers, what's my language here, but those lousy cowards, 5 of my buddies were taken prisoner by them, and we found them 24 hours later in a crater, each one with a bullet hole in the back of the neck of the lousy Waffen-SS. And the Hitler Youth also. We had a bunch of prisoners near the end of the war. I remember the leader, we had him shackled with his arms behind him. I'm not getting up, but we had him shackled with his ankles and his arms behind him. And he's walking in this direction. I was about 15 feet back to the rear. He makes a right turn and he comes right up to me. I don't know what he was going to do at first. Looks me right in the eye. And he starts screaming, Schweinhund, Amerikaner Schweinhund. And he starts spitting in my face. Well, I wasn't sure what it meant, but I damn well knew it wasn't a pleasantry the way he said it. I think it means pig dog or something German. And he's spitting in my face. And the saliva is coming down, this hateful young Nazi. Well, I was pissed because I was up 36 hours. I lost a lot of my close buddies. And I wasn't about to let this young Nazi curse me and spit in my face. So I took my M1 rifle. It's always on my right hip, picked it up, like put it right against his right temple and took the safety off. And I had I feel it every time. And the major starts screaming at me, college boy, don't do that in front of me. Don't do that in front of me. He's not worth it. He's not worth it. I'll GCM you if you do. GCM is a general court martial. But I came close, so close to blowing that young, but thank God for the major. If I'd have done that, I'd been court martial and who knows, I'd have been probably in Fort Leavenworth the rest of my life. But the hate is what I remember. Again, I'm repeating it. The hate that the Nazis had. We kept saying, where did that hate come from? We didn't hate. We wanted to win the war, go home. Now let me get to the second part, the main reason why I speak. Around the beginning of May 1945, our outfit came across a POW camp, prisoner of war camp, near Lambach in Austria. Almost all RAF, Royal Air Force, British flyboys. Overall in good shape, very thin, but very happy to be liberated. There was a lot of camaraderie going on, guys hugging each other. Thank you, thank you. And for the first time, we all heard some of the prisoners say, hey, guys, we're not sure. But we heard rumors that there's a camp for Jews a few kilometers down the road. Well, we all looked at each other. Camp for Jews? We don't know. What are you talking about? And I emphasize that because we didn't know about Camp for Jews. I'm not talking about President Roosevelt, Churchill, and the mucky mucks up top. They damn well knew about those camps. I found out later they were going up in the 30s and 40s. But on our level, we didn't know. We knew Hitler wasn't crazy about Jews, but we didn't know about concentration camps. So we thought, well, maybe it's a rumor. We don't know. We were ordered to go toward Linz, Austria. There was still some fighting going on. I remember walking. It was, oh boy, it was like a dead, not snow, but there was a damn drizzly day. And all of a sudden, God help me, the most offensive, nauseating stench got into your nostrils, into your brain. You couldn't breathe. Everybody said, what the hell is that stench? And the liberator tell you, the smell is the first thing that hits you. We didn't know what that was. And I saw through the trees, like a compound filled with barbed wire as far as you could see. And up on the top, Arbeit macht frei. I knew enough German. Work will make you free. A bunch of garbage that turned out to be, but that's what they had out up on the top. That was turned out to be the Gunskirchenlager. And so they pronounced it pretty well. A lot of people have trouble with the name. Gunskirchenlager, a subcamp of Mauthausen, a concentration camp in Austria. Very little resistance because a lot of the Nazis were running away, retreating. Was near the end of the one. Kraut was up on the top there, and the interpreter kept telling him to drop his gun. He kept pointing the gun down at all of us. The captain finally said, if he's not going to drop the gun, College Boy, you know what you got to do. Well, the interpreter screams again to drop the gun. For some reason, I don't know, that guy wanted to die. I thought he was going to be a hero, but I got a couple of rounds off with my M1. Boom. Down he went. Last mistake he made. Cut through the barbed wire and entered that camp. And I'm going to tell you people that what I saw there was the most horrific sight I've ever seen or ever hope to see the rest of my life. There was a pile of skeleton-like bodies on the left. There was another pile of skeleton-like bodies on the right. When I say skeleton-like, I mean skeleton, bones with no flesh practically, laying on top of each other all over the place. Those poor souls, oh, that's what my lieutenant kept screaming. Look, he said, oh my God, he kept, look at these poor souls. Those poor souls that were alive were so emaciated it defies description. I don't think they're going to weigh more than 75 pounds. Some of them were walking toward us, and I remember they were looking skyward and chanting prayers in dialects that we didn't understand, mumbling prayers, praying. Others were crawling. They didn't look like normal human beings. They had these, it looked like pajamas to me, a gray or white, some of the tops, some with the bottoms. I couldn't distinguish genitalia. They all looked alike, man, woman, child. Then all of a sudden, the lieutenant said he knew I was Jewish, and we saw the Jewish, the star, the Jewish star was on some of the uniforms of some of them. So he screamed out because we didn't know who they were. They must be Jewish, some of these people. They must be Jewish. Moskin, can you speak it? I said, no, I can't speak that. My parents, it was English. And what they did in the bedroom, I knew some idioms, sugar, chutzpah. But all of a sudden, I was able to shoot out, Ich bin auch Ayud. Ich bin auch Ayud. It came out of me. I don't know where. It's German, I think, more. I am also a Jew. And when I said that I am also a Jew for the first time, oh my God, I met Judah. And I said, I'm an American Jew, because they did Americana, there was some smiles for the first time at the Gunskirchenlager. Essen bitte, Wasser bitte, cigarette bitter, food, water. I didn't smoke, but the guys that smoke, you had to watch. They start to hand out the cigarettes, ready to light them. They don't want to smoke. You have to watch. They grab the cigarette, pull the wrapper, and start eating the tobaccos. You have to watch what starvation does. You have to see it when they start biting into the tobacco. I'm just looking. And then when I said acid, I knew that was food. We had those days of Spam or crackers or cheese. I think today they have MREs. Well, we didn't have. We had C rations. I'm trying to hand it out. Some of them would grab the food, and the next thing they start. Oh, you're trying to help. I want you to get the pig. And they're starting to choke and fall to the ground. They're scared. And then the medics came up and started screaming, no solid food, damn it. No solid food, because they can't swallow. Now, I'm not a doctor, but apparently when you don't eat for a lot, the esophagus, it clamps up, you can't swallow. But we didn't know that. I want you to get the pit. We're trying to help with food. People are choking, falling to the ground. And then when I said, Ishminai Yud, there's one elderly man. Well, it's funny when you're 18, elderly, probably half my age today, but he was elderly to me. If he weighed 70 pounds, he was smiling and he started to walk toward me. And I wasn't sure what he was going to do at first. And then he went down on his hands and knees. When I'm not sitting in this like in virtual, I tell the guy, get up and show. He went on his hands and knees and he started to kiss my boots. My boots were caked with feces and blood and mud and vomit. And I knew he was trying to be affectionate toward me. I understood it, but I never had anybody grovel at my feet like that. It made me very uncomfortable. I didn't like it. So I picked him up under the armpits, to pull him up. And as he came up, God help me, the stench was so overbearing. Down the nape of his neck, there were these open, pussy, festering sores. And out of the sores, lice was crawling. I know this is graphic, but I'm giving you the picture. And he's holding me tight. And there were lice crawling. They all had lice from the filth of the concentration camps. And thank God I didn't pull away. And he kept saying, Jude, danke, Americana, danke. And I can never forget that scene, how happy he was and thankful and so weak. But and then we were ordered to check out the barracks, the upper and the lower, as far as you could see, thousands of meters, And when you went in there, you couldn't breathe also. There were dead bodies. People were actually sitting on dead bodies and next to dead bodies, those who were alive. And when we came in, they were all saying, Hilfen Sie mir, help, I think, help me. Hilfen, something they wanted, help me. We weren't doctors. I was just a soldier. I couldn't stay in there. And I came out and I started screaming, medics, medics. And these medics were just young guys like me, mostly the stick. Well, you wouldn't know it. Those days, morphine was when guys had their arms blown off, or I don't want to get too graphic here, and bleeding out and in terrible pain. The medics were sticking them with morphine so they wouldn't die in such pain. But here there were bodies, so they didn't know where to run, trying to help. It was chaos. We weren't prepared. We weren't prepared for this. When I came out, then I saw a dead horse. I saw this dead horse on the ground, and 3 of these inmates had the bark of a tree, and they're digging it into the entrails of a dead horse, and they're pulling the guts of a dead horse. And I'm looking and biting and chewing. That's what starvation does to you when you see something. There's blood is squirting all over. Everywhere you looked in the Gunskirchenlager was the foul stench of the dead and the dying, okay, everywhere. It's like trying to describe the indescribable. And I do the best I can. We were then told by the way, we were then told, they were going to call the rear for doctors and dentists and people to come up, because we weren't prepared as liberating soldiers, infantry soldiers to handle this. They needed professional help. And that's what happened after that. And I might say also that we were told to bring the people in from town because Eisenhower screamed. He was a commanding general, Dwight D. Eisenhower, screaming over, we got the rule. I don't want my grunts. We were called grunts. I don't want my grunts picking up those bodies. Well, I want the people from the town to be brought in. So they had the people from the town, they brought them in, and to look, and all I remember, they all put their hands over their face. Ich weiß es nicht. Nobody knew nothing. They didn't know, but they smelled, and they couldn't. I don't go into that. That's not I don't speak about what they did or didn't know. All I'm going to tell you is if all your Jewish neighbors are taken away day after day and the smokestacks and the stink, you got to know something was going on, but maybe it's something you don't want to know about. So I don't get into that. That's another story for what they knew or they didn't know. After the war ended in Europe in May of 45, I'm told to put my head up, but I get that all the time. But you got to see my hat, not my head. After the war ended in Europe in May of 45, I remained in Austria and Germany as a member of the Army of Occupation. I was there for about a year. And during that time, I had the opportunity to speak to so many other GIs. We didn't know how many camps there were. Start hearing stories about Buchenwald and Bergen-Belsen and Ravensbrück and Sachsenhausen and Majdanek and Kelmlo and, of course, Auschwitz and Birkenau, the real death. And so, last time I spoke to Sarah Bloomfield down at the museum in Washington, they got 40,000 of these hellholes. 40,000. You imagine all over Europe the Nazis had put up. One story is worse than the next. So I could just say, I'm looking. No, 75. Yeah, it's over 75. It was mind-boggling 75 plus years ago, and even today, it's so hard for me to try to comprehend and to try to verbalize the overwhelming enormity and the bestiality. That's the word I use. Bestiality of what I witnessed. Left a mark on me. In my heart, my soul, it's like a tattoo. I wish I could get rid of the mark. I can't. It's here. I kept thinking then, and I think now, and I always will think, how did the civilized world let something like this happen? How could this happen? And I never got an answer that made any sense to me. Okay, never. So in the memory, I know you all heard this. So the memory of those 6 million Jews, including 1.5 million young people. And let's not forget, a lot of the kids come up to me afterwards and said they thought it was only Jews, mostly Jews, but millions of non-Jews, Catholics, Catholic priests, gays, Jehovah's Witnesses, gypsies, those who opposed the Nazis in any way. All. Anybody even had a physical deformity. Anybody that didn't conform to Hitler's perverted ideology of the pure Aryan race was thrown into a concentration camp. I wanted to be a lawyer. So I wanted to attend the Nuremberg war crimes trials, which went on for, I guess, about a year. End of 45 into 46, a big palace at Nuremberg. How the hell that palace did? We bombed Nuremberg every day, but that palace stayed intact. And that big palace is where they had the trial of the pompous, what's my language here, Goering and Hess and the rest of those palookas. And I went 3 or 4 times to Nuremberg. A testimony that I heard there. Woohoo! People would come in they would testify over. People would come in, they strip them of clothes, put them on an operating table. They had, age, height, weight. Nazis were good with record keep. And they start operating with no anesthesia. And the screams went out. People said there was testified over. They heard the people screaming, and they had a stopwatch nearby to see how long you could live being operated on without anesthesia. Mengele and the rest of those butcher doctors. Women and girls, mothers with their little child. This was testified to over and over again. They had these cabins with nothing, looks like showers. I saw it myself. I saw it later. Made sense. Women, children, girls go in to be deloused. They all had lice, I told you. They went in to be deloused, the door shut, and instead of water, gas. Hundreds of thousands of mothers and teenage girls and women were giving, they couldn't work, so the Nazis just figured they'd kill them. And this went on almost to the day we liberated the camps. These butchers like Goebbels and Eichmann and Himmler, they were still doing it. Almost to the day we liberated the camp. Again, where did this hate come from? How did people treat other people? I can't get a handle on it to this day. I'm not even going to get into this because it gets me too upset. The experiments that they did on twins is just too graphic for me to tell you what they did to twins, the Nazis. So in the memory of all those poor souls who were brutally and savagely degraded, dehumanized, tortured, slaughtered, and murdered without cause or without reason, I don't want anyone to forget the Holocaust, what I saw, what I'm talking about. And this is not easy for me, but I'm doing it. I'll keep. Unless I forget, and I will never forget, in memory and in tribute to my own band of brothers who made the ultimate sacrifice so that you all can hear me speak here today, and the kids can all hear me when I speak. Like Tex, Jimbo, and Muzzy, and RJ, and Bulldog, and Schoolboy, and Gonzo, and Tommy. Tommy came over from headquarters company about a week before the end of the war. Everybody loved Tommy. He always had a smile on, a joke. You had to love Tommy. And damn it, less 3 or 4 days before the end of the war, I forget what day, Council, a lot of mortar shell came in, and Tommy was in a hole about 100 feet to my right, and he got it. And I'm going to tell you, part of his body flew by me. And I kept screaming after, why Tommy and not me? Okay, why Tommy and not me? And my captain, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't my captain. Not once but twice saved us from ambush. And then second time jumped on alive for a grenade. You don't come back. And all these guys, I'm telling you, that's the reason people can listen to me babble here, because we beat the Nazis and the hate. And I don't want them to be forgotten. None of it, because they helped preserve the liberty and freedom that we all enjoy. And this great country, and we are a great country. We're going through a lot of hell now, and in different areas, but we're not perfect. We can do better, but we will, and make no mistake about it. I've been around. We're still the greatest country in the world. You can take that to the bank. I tell the kids that. Don't forget that for one moment. When I'm speaking here now, some of these kids go into outhouses, don't know where their next meal is coming from. And I want these kids to know how lucky they are to have a home that they have to. Don't take it for granted. Kiss their mom and dad every day to go to nice schools like Horus Greeley and the other schools that I speak at. And I'm just going to, before I get to the last page, the hate. I want to get into this hate that Where does this hate, I know, where does this evil, this hate come from? We got it now still going. We thought we got rid of that hate with the Nazis. We got rid of it. It breaks my heart now to see all this hate that is still out there. You know, you got Al Qaeda and ISIS. You saw people putting people on television and beheading them and saying that's in the name of religion. There's no religion that condones that garbage, or burning people. The craziness, this hate. Not just Al Qaeda and ISIS out there. What about in this country? A lot of kids come later. What? Yeah. Ku Klux Klan, white nationalists, the Proud Boys, whatever the hell that means. These are hate groups. They thrive on hate. You saw what happened at the Capitol. I never thought in my life I would see something like that happen in the United States of America. Where does this hate come from? I'm going to just tell you, in my judgment, there's no religion that condones that kind of stuff. I don't care how they tell it, what they do. So let me just say, getting near the end now, I want to be honest. I'm going to be blunt. My generation failed. You know, Brokaw put it out there that it's the greatest generation. My World War II maybe we got a lot of values from our parents and our grandparents, and we learned things that sometimes today they don't have the connection, I think. But we failed. We didn't get rid of the hate. It's out there. We didn't do the job, and that's why I tell the younger generation, the middle school, the high school, the college kids, it's their job. They got to get rid of the hate. Edmund Burke had it right when he said, all that is necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men, not only good women, for good men and good women not to act. Okay? Remember that. Inaction to me is the same as consent. Indifference to me is the same. I don't care if you say, oh, you're not prejudiced. You don't feel that way when somebody makes the wise ass jokes. And I'm sure these kids have heard it about blacks, and they don't say black, they use the N-word, or if the Jews aren't around, you know, that, and you feel uncomfortable sometimes. Maybe you don't agree with it, but you sit there, you don't get off your duff. To me, that's consent. That's consent. I want you to be an upstander, damn it. I'm an upstander. They don't pull that stuff in front of me. The veterans know me already. I don't like those wise jokes that the Jews didn't fight and all that. When they drink, they get a little crazy. I want you to be an upstander, I tell the young kids. And speak out and say, knock it off. I'm not preaching violence, but get up and show how you feel. It's not easy, but I'm going to tell you, your real, true friends are going to say, boy, that was something. And they're going to respect you for it. You know, I don't like to scare anybody, but I always say, this is not an M1 rifle war anymore. This is a nuclear age. We got crazies out there. President Kennedy, now, I don't want to get into politics, but I was a big admirer of John F. Kennedy. I can't do his New England accent, but I want to say something that always rang with me when he said, mankind must put an end to war, or war is going to put an end to mankind. You hear me? Mankind must put an end to war, or war is going to put an end to mankind. We got nuclear out there today. We got crazies in North Korea, Iran. Finally, let me conclude by stating that on a personal level, I'll never be able to forget the living hell and horror that I personally witnessed back in May of 1945. It's part of me. I can't forget it. And I'm going to continue to speak out whenever asked. And I've been asked an awful lot now. Apparently, you got to do the math. I was 18, pushing 95. They can't find hardly any liberators out there. So I'm elected, and I'm speaking all over the place, and I'm going to continue to do it as long as God gives me the strength. And I tell everybody that I speak to, particularly the young kids, I tell them, listen, you guys are the last generation that's going to hear people like me and the survivors and the hidden children and the kinder transport. Because by the time you have grandchildren, then they get old enough, we're going to be gone. I know one likes me to say that, my daughter, my Chris, but listen, maybe I'll live to 120. But in 5 or 10 years, most people are going to be gone. And those deniers are going to come out of the woodwork. They're out there already. And you got to say, hey, I heard something. You think I'm making this up? Then don't say anything. But I want you to remember what you heard here when they come out of the woodwork. That's why you must tell your children and your grandchildren what you heard, so that the future generations will know the truth. That's why I speak. And they'll finally get rid of the hate, is the main thing. Get rid of the hate, the prejudice, the bigotry, the discrimination that still unfortunately exists in so many parts of the world, even including in the United States of America. And that these younger people will make absolutely sure that there'll never, ever be another Holocaust like the hell and the horror that I personally witnessed back in May of 1945. And when that day hopefully comes, then thankfully all God's children, white, black, brown, yellow, Catholic, Protestant, Jew, Muslim, all God's children will be able to live side by side, neighbor to neighbor, in a world filled with love and peace and not with any hate. And that's my mantra, and that's what I try to get across when I speak. I appreciate you having me here, and God bless. And God bless the United States of America. Thank you very much.
Alan, thank you so much for sharing your extremely important story with us tonight. As Elie Wiesel said, when you listen to a witness, you become a witness. Everyone gathered here tonight is now a witness. We will carry your powerful words forward and never forget what hate can do. We will pledge to speak out wherever we see hate rear its ugly head. We are committed to finding a world full of love. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts for helping our community remember.
Thank you.
Now,
appreciate that.
Now, to close this evening, we welcome our town supervisor, Ivy Poole.
Thank you, Stacy, for that warm introduction. And I want to join you in extending my deepest gratitude and admiration for Mr. Moskin. Thank you for that incredibly powerful presentation. God bless you. I hope you do live to 120 and that you continue to find the strength to speak out.
Thank you.
I also want to acknowledge and thank Ben Goldenberg from Enough and Joe Kearns, the Enough advisor, for contributing your voices to this commemoration of International Holocaust Remembrance Day. As we all know, International Holocaust Remembrance Day marks the liberation of Auschwitz on January 27, 1945. More than 75 years later, it's alarming how the anti-Semitism and hateful ideas embraced by the Nazis continue on. Earlier this month, on January 6th, the insurrection on the Capitol Hill was the latest reminder that our work to eradicate hatred is essential and far from complete. Among the most shocking images from the attacks on the Capitol were pictures of a man wearing a sweatshirt that said, Camp Auschwitz.
Yeah.
This naked, boastful, pro-Nazi white supremacy is repulsive, and it should be deeply alarming to all of us. International Holocaust Remembrance Day takes on a special meaning and is even more urgent this year. We must continue to educate, to remember, to reflect, and to recommit ourselves to ensuring that the atrocities of the Holocaust, what Mr. Moskin described tonight, are never again repeated. This is a new day. It's a new year. We have new leadership in this country. And despite our ongoing challenges, many of us are feeling hopeful again that we're on a good path forward. But even as we move forward and we look with cautious optimism to the future, we can't forget the past. That's why the perspective that we heard here tonight is so special and so important. And so again, I just want to say thank you to Mr. Moskin for bringing this message to our community. I want to thank all the speakers that we had here tonight, our organizers, Ali Rosenberg and Stacy Science. And a big thank you, as always, to Carrie Krams from Newcastle Community Media Center for providing all of our technical support in producing this event. Good night, everyone. Thank you, and stay safe.
Thank you, Amy.